You wake up because the bells are screaming. Not ringing. Screaming. Outside the wall, a second army has arrived before sunrise, and every person inside the castle suddenly understands the same thing. Today is not the day the battle begins. Today is the day the door closes. You are not a shining knight. You are not charging across a field with a banner over your head. You are a tired defender inside a medieval fortress, and the enemy does not need to defeat you with one heroic attack. They only need to make sure you cannot leave. Could you last one day? At first, the castle feels safe. That is what castles were built to do. Stone walls rise above the road. A gatehouse blocks the entrance. Archers can stand above anyone foolish enough to come close. In medieval Europe, castles and fortified towns were not just homes for nobles. They were centers of power, food storage, administration, trade, and control over the surrounding land. That is why sieges mattered so much. A commander who captured a castle did not just capture a building. He captured the road, the taxes, the farms, the bridge, the message routes, the authority of the lord who owned it. So the enemy army does something terrifyingly simple. It stops. Tents appear beyond bowshot. Horses are tied near the tree line. Men dig shallow ditches. Scouts move along the roads. Carts block the paths. The attackers do not rush the walls because rushing walls is dangerous. Instead, they surround you and begin the oldest siege tactic of all, starvation. Starvation means cutting off food and water until the defenders cannot continue. It sounds slow because it is slow. That is the point. Vegetius, the late Roman military writer whose De Re Militari was still read throughout the Middle Ages, warned commanders that preparation often mattered more than courage. And historians of medieval warfare such as Philippe Contamine and John France have shown that medieval war was often less about glorious open battles and more about pressure, fortifications, supplies, and endurance. That is your first lesson. A siege is not a battle of bravery. It is a battle of waiting. By mid-morning, the fear changes shape. At sunrise, everyone watched the enemy. Now everyone watches the storerooms. Sacks of grain, barrels of salted meat, baskets of onions, jars of ale, buckets of water. Suddenly, these ordinary things become the real walls of the castle. If the food lasts, the castle lasts. If the food fails, the stone is only decoration. What do you think happens to morale when every meal becomes a calculation? Morale means whether people still believe they can survive and win. Inside a siege, morale is not built by speeches. It is built by bread. A confident garrison can become nervous when the rations shrink. A loyal servant can become angry when a noble eats better. A brave soldier can become silent when he realizes the enemy outside is also waiting for hunger to do the work. Then the first messenger tries to leave. He does not wear shining armor. He carries a small note, wrapped tight, hidden under his clothes. He waits until the shadows stretch along the wall. If he reaches a friendly lord, maybe a relief army will come. A relief army is a force sent to break the siege from outside. It is the defender's best hope, because the people inside the castle usually cannot defeat the besiegers alone. But the enemy knows this too. That is why the roads are watched. That is why scouts wait in the trees. That is why a siege turns the whole countryside into a trap. By noon, the machines begin. You hear wood creaking before you see anything. A great frame rises outside the wall. Men drag ropes. Others push stones into position. This is a trebuchet, a siege engine that uses a heavy counterweight to throw stones farther and harder than human arms ever could. It is not a magic wall destroyer. It is a machine for creating pressure. One stone hits the outer wall. The whole castle seems to inhale. Another stone follows. Then another. The point is not always to smash the fortress in one afternoon. The point is to remind everyone inside that time belongs to the attacker. Every strike says the same thing. You are surrounded, your wall can crack, and no one outside may arrive in time. Would you still feel safe behind stone? The defenders answer with arrows. The commander walks along the wall and tells everyone to hold position. But in the command room, the map is worse than his face. One road is blocked. The river crossing is watched. The nearest ally is days away. The grain is counted again. This is logistics, which means the food, roads, animals, carts, water, tools, and supplies that keep an army alive. People imagine medieval war as sword against sword, but logistics decides whether the sword is even held by someone strong enough to lift it. The strange truth is that the attackers are also in danger. They are outside the walls. Their horses need fodder. Their soldiers need food. Their camp needs clean water. Their commanders need money to keep men from going home. A long siege can trap the besieger as much as the besieged. Bad weather can turn roads into mud. A disease can move through a camp. A relief army can appear behind them. A castle that refuses to fall can freeze an entire campaign in place. So why do they stay? Because if the castle falls, the whole region may fall with it. By afternoon, someone points toward the base of the wall. The enemy is digging. This is mining, which means tunneling under a wall to weaken its foundation. If the tunnel reaches the right spot, wooden supports can hold it up for a while. Then those supports can be burned or collapsed, and the wall above may sink or break. It is terrifying because you cannot always see it happening. So now your fear is not only in front of you. It is beneath your feet. The defenders may dig a countermine, a tunnel meant to meet the enemy underground. They may listen for scraping sounds through the earth. The battlefield has become invisible. This is where the heroic version of medieval war collapses. A siege is not one dramatic duel. It is smoke, hunger, counting, repair work, rumors, mud, splintered wood, bad sleep, and the constant question of whether the next sound means rescue or disaster. At Rochester Castle in 1215, King John's forces famously attacked the keep during a rebellion of barons against the crown. At Château-Gaillard in 1203 and 1204, Philip II of France took the fortress after a long operation against King John's territory in Normandy. These were not simple contests of courage. They were contests of engineering, money, patience, intelligence, and political will. That is the counterintuitive twist. The wall is not the strongest part of the castle. The strongest part is the system behind it. Food stores, water access, loyal defenders, reliable messages, a commander who understands time, allies who can actually arrive. People who still believe surrender is worse than holding out. Break that system, and the wall becomes a monument to a decision already lost. As evening arrives, the enemy campfires appear one by one outside the fortress. Little orange dots in the dark. They look almost peaceful from the wall. But every fire is a reminder that the siege has survived its first day. And so have you. But only barely. Your shoulders ache from standing watch. Your stomach already feels smaller. Your mind keeps returning to the storerooms. You wonder whether the messenger escaped. You wonder whether the commander knows more than he says. You wonder which side is better at waiting. This is the part of war that follows you into modern life. The pressure. Most people do not lose because One dramatic strike destroys them. They lose because their system cannot hold. A company fails when supplies break. A team fails when trust disappears. A leader fails when bad information keeps moving upward. A person fails when exhaustion turns every small decision into a heavy one. A siege teaches a brutal lesson without needing glory. Strength is not what you look like from the outside. Strength is what still works when the door closes. You woke up because the bells were screaming. Now you understand what they were saying.